Of the scientific and engineering practices, this is number 1, asking questions and defining a problem. We were actually not able to implement this into our instruction.
In the second practice, which is planning and carrying out investigation, we did guide the learners through this process of planning. They were doing a scavenger hunt during the exploration, and they were actually asking questions like, could we measure this object? Or they were asking question, for example, can we use inches instead of centimeter? So we were really guiding them. We provided assistance to the student through the whole exploration, and also we guided them through the carrying out investigation. So they didn't do it independently. We were assisting them.
The second scientific and engineering practice that we implemented into our measurement lesson was analyzing and interpreting data. As the students participated in the scavenger hunt and were able to make predictions, go out and measure, and then come back to and discuss how the predictions compared with the actual measurements, they were able to analyze their data to actually see how this comparison was. So they were able to look at their predicted length of each object and then the actual length to see how well they did estimate and measure. This is how they analyzed and interpreted their data.
The third scientific and engineering practice that we did implemented in our lesson was using mathematics and computational thinking. We actually get the chance to guide the learners through the process of applying mathematics. For example, some students were asking us like, how do we convert a ruler in millimeter to centimeter? So they were confused if they want to use the unit centimeter, how they're going to use it with a ruler in millimeter. So we did helping them. Some of them, they were asking us, how could we convert inches to centimeters, because we only have read the inches part of the ruler. So we did helping them. So I can say that the learners didn't apply mathematics and mathematics rules or measurement rules by themselves. We were guiding them through the whole process.
The next scientific and engineering practice on our list is developing and using models. However, we did not implement this into our instruction. The fourth scientific and engineering practice that we did implement into our instruction was developing explanations and designing solutions. We did this by encouraging students to stand up in front of the class and discuss their findings with the entire group, but they did not complete this task independently. We did communicate the expectations and the norms for this process so that they would know how to stand up and explain to the group what they found and how their findings actually differed from their predictions. So during this process, the students stood up in front of the class, discussed their object predictions with the length, and then the actual length of these object predictions. So they explained this and also provided a solution discussing how different the prediction length was from the actual length. So that's how we implemented that scientific and engineering practice into our instruction.
The last two practices in scientific and engineering practices were engaging in argument from evidence. We didn't apply this practice. The learners didn't have the chance to do argument or forms reasonable arguments because we ran out of time, and we didn't either coaching them in the development of communication because of the time. So they didn't finish this practice. And thinking also about the last practice, scientific and engineering practice, which is obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. Unfortunately, we didn't implement this practice either. The learner couldn't examine other resources or forms any links to explanation because we ran out of time. And we didn't either directed them toward the area and sources of scientific knowledge.
We had the opportunity to teach 4 classes throughout the day, and we were really shocked at the beginning of the day when we allowed the students to sit with their friends and this actually was not a pleasant experience. Even though the students did okay, there was very little work going on, there was very little attention on the lesson, and actually just more talking with friends and collaborating with them, as opposed to the desire to get out and measure and meet the objectives that we wanted to.
And I think also what works good, that we did learn from the first class. So for the next class, we just group the student in a group which is depends on their birthday dates. For example, the student who were born in January, they were sitting together, and the student who were born in February, they were sitting together. So we chose their group, and we think that was really successful to our lesson, because we just let them sit down with a group that we chose, and not with the group that they want to talk to and chat through the whole session.
And it was actually quite enjoyable, because as the students were coming in, they sat down with their friends, and they were completely shocked when we said, okay, everyone stand up and go to the front of the classroom, and we asked them, okay, raise your hand if you have a January birthday. And then we asked those January students to stand at one end, and then, okay, who has a December birthday? We asked them to stand at the end, and then everyone to fill in between. They thought it was really neat, and then I'm not sure they actually knew this is how they were going to be grouped. So it was a fun activity. It was a fun very beginning activity for them, as opposed to them coming in and finding their desk and sitting down. They got to actually participate in a small activity. It was enjoyable.
Yes, it was. And I think also the only process that I wish we did explain it or remake it just better, it was the explanation part. We thought actually that it was, we asked them like more questions, and that's why the explanation parts took longer, and we couldn't do the elaboration part. So we wish that we asked them less questions in the explanation, so we could have some times for the elaboration that we already planned for.
And looking back, we asked the students to stand up in front of the class and discuss all 10 of your findings, whereas we could have saved a lot of time by saying, okay, stand up and discuss your 5 best measurements.
Exactly.
And we probably would have had time to do the elaboration where the students were able to compete, and I think the students would have enjoyed that competition had the time allowed for it.
Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise of the day?
The biggest surprise for me is just make the length lesson just interesting and fun.
The students had such a good time with it.
Exactly. For me, it was a very dry subject, so hard to just find an activity that they like it. Everybody was happy, everybody was ready to just explore and do the scavenger hunt, and which shocked me.
And I think they enjoyed actually being able to get up and move around and participate in an activity, as opposed to doing work from a textbook. So I was really shocked at how much they really enjoyed the lesson.
Did you get any feedback from your cousin?
He said he had fun. They actually have a substitute right now, and who is not a retired science teacher. They're doing very little inquiry-based lessons. They do a lot of worksheet and textbook assignments. So he told me that he so enjoyed being able to get up and move around and collaborate with groups, as opposed to sitting and doing textbook work and being quiet. So they seem to really enjoy it. I was shocked.